The time has come to say good night at the end of a lovely day. Vice News Media thinks there's too many black people in Far Cry 5. Fucking... Oh my god.
Oh my god!
Hi guys, Flattmeister here. Vice Media, Vice News. Wrote this article. I know I'm a little bit late to the party here. Obviously my chronic pain sort of held me up throughout last week and the sort of beginning of this week. But late to the party. So Vice News. And this article's written by Dexter Thomas, right? Why are these people game journalists, right? Why are there so many black people in Far Cry 5? Well, I did a video on Far Cry 5 explaining that they were a cult, doomsday prepper cult. They weren't white supremacists. They weren't Trump supporters. They were a fundamentalist Christian group. An extreme doomsday prepper, end of days, first Old Testament, fire... hellfire and brimstone cult. So Dexter Thomas says, after spending a few weeks with Far Cry 5, I've come to the regretful conclusion that there are way too many black people in this game.
There's too many
black people
on the dance floor.
Black people. Black people. Black people. Black people. Black people. How very racist of you, Vice. It's not that I dislike black people in fiction or in real life. Full disclosure, I am black. So it's okay to dislike black people, even though I'm black myself. It's just that for a series that prides itself on realism, now remember this bit, right? For a series that prides itself on realism, my experience of constantly bumping into assault rifle toting black people in the forests of Montana just seems unrealistic. This is what happens when you cater to these people that demand representation, my representation. There was an article saying that 10 years on and Marvel films are still not diverse. What? Apparently it's not diverse enough. There's not enough diversity. Far Cry 5's premise is that you're a local deputy sent to arrest the leader of a doomsday cult. See, that's what I said. That has been taking over fictional Hope County, Montana. But for some reason, that's never explained. In-game, a large proportion of the cultists are black. Okay. Why would they need to explain? There's loads of blacks in the area because... my blacks. Or maybe it was like the perhaps the local council or the local town mayor of Hope County went, we need to import more black people to live in the town so we look like a quite progressive town, even though there's a cult that's just rocked up. So Dexter Thomas says, according to the 2016 census, black people make up just over 0.5% of the population of Montana. There are only about 6,000 black people in the entire state. Does Far Cry expect me to believe that all of them moved to Hope County? Also, right, so I was saying about the game that prides itself on realism, right? And that this apparently takes this journalist out of it. That, oh, my immersion is broken because I'm black and I've noticed there's also lots of other blacks, as well as lots of other white people in the cult as well. Because Vice also owns Waypoint, which is a gaming site. They say they're a gaming site. Waypoint refused to review Kingdom Come Deliverance. And Daniel Vavra, the creative director, I made a video about this in which he said, I'm not backing down. This is my history. I've done my research. This is my history. There were no black people in 15th century Bohemia. And they complained, oh, you're racist because you've not included black people and you're claiming you want your game to be real, pride yourself on realism. But yet Vice Media here is complaining there's too many black people. Do you want realism or do you want tokenism? And do you want forced diversity or not? Because that's what you've demanded. That's what you've been hitting at developers for, like, we want we want diversity, we want representation. Give us our representation. Okay, well, we'll give you a couple of token black characters. The developers have tried to explain this by saying that the cult that appears as the main enemy in the game has gotten everyone, regardless of colour, to join. But that doesn't account for the fact that even non-cultists are disproportionately black. So what she's saying, he's saying that even the local civilians around Hope County are black as well. I've not played Far Cry 5, I haven't got a next-gen console, or I can't afford to buy it. But from what I've seen, there seems to be an even amount of white characters and black characters. This is the funny bit, right? Stranger still is that you can go through the entire game without running into a Native American. Oh, the progressive stack. I've always said, oh, well, what about Native Americans? You never see them represented. At 6.6% of the state's population in Montana, Native Americans represent a much larger community than black people, and inclusion of a prominent Native character or two probably would make it feel more like Montana. The strained diversity of the cast may just be a sign that Ubisoft, like a lot of the gaming industry, is starting to make some occasionally awkward efforts at inclusion. In the past, the Far Cry series, which at over 40 million units sold, is one of the most popular FPS franchises, and has generally involved travelling to exotic lands and shooting its exotic inhabitants. Well, I completed Far Cry 4 the other day, and like I've said, there is no clear black. It's not so black and white, good versus bad. All the characters are bad. There's that morally ambiguous, that grey area. Far Cry 3, for example, you play as a white man who fights his way out of a fictional South Pacific island. This story format has led to a lot of gamers criticising the series as being racist. How is it racist for being a white character and you're on an island? Oh my god, like, only racist people see skin colour, right? That's the problem with these SJWs. They only see skin colour and gender, genitals. They don't see who you are as a person. And perhaps sparing the concern among some white gamers that Far Cry 5 would give white people the violent savage treatment. No, I was like, they're a cult. It doesn't matter what their skin colour is. Creative director Dan Hay is aware of the criticism of the past Far Cry games. They're not racist. Far Cry 2, set in Africa, not racist. You play as a mercenary stuck in the middle of a civil war conflict between two different warlords, two different factions, and then you've got mercenaries trying to get blood diamonds, things like that. There's this whole, and refugees, there's people that are trying to get away from this conflict. The creative director, aware of the criticism of the past game, said there were some folks who were basically communicating that, hey, this is like the Great White Hope going in and saving these folks. He said in an interview with Vice News. What? This is like the Great White Hope. Yeah, I don't listen to Anita Sarkeesian, Ubisoft. I think that what we did is we looked at that and we said to ourselves, how do we as a brand make sure that as we go into the future, we're building it so that the main character is not just a prescribed character? How do we make it so that we're actually making it so that you can build the character yourself and that it could be you if you want? That's the problem with going with a silent protagonist in Far Cry 5. I really enjoyed RJ, the guy who voiced RJ Garley in Far Cry 4 and who voiced Jason Brody in Far Cry 3, brought the characters to life, despite the fact that you never see them, that you're in first person, but with how they interact with the other characters and the villains. But with Far Cry 5, it's just a blank slate, and what you're supposed to project yourself onto a character. This ended up, he says, with Far Cry's new approach to plot and world building. Instead of being forced to play as a specified character, you make your own avatar, customizing the protagonist's gender, hair and skin colour. In theory, it should make Far Cry 5 more immersive. Like, there was a guy that there was a journalist when the game came out, a journalist went, oh, this sort of typical white male soy boy went, I picked a black woman, and I was like half expecting people to come around and hurl racial slurs at my character, but they didn't, because the game wasn't advertised as them being white supremacists or KKK neo-Nazis. The game was advertised as they were doomsday preppers. I've fucking said that I've said it numerous times. The problem with this immersive experience is that occasionally breaks down if you don't pick a white avatar. At one point in the game, you come across a woman who looks you up and down and asks if you are Italian, insinuating that Italians are thieves. Italian, what E-Y-E, Italian. That doesn't make sense. I don't know what that means. They ask for realism in games. They ask, we need games to cover more sensitive, more mature subjects. And then when a game does attempt to do that, they go, the game is insinuating that Italians are thieves. Do you want those themes or not? Do you want games to push the boundaries? Anyway, this guy says, but I had customized my avatar to be a woman with dark skin and short afro. Not really an appearance that would scream Italian to a rural Montanan. It's as though the writers assumed that most players would pick a white character, and anyone who didn't would just nod and accept that gap in storytelling logic. I've not played Far Cry 5, so I can't really comment on that. I don't know.
What the fuck was that?
It's frustrating oversight because Far Cry 5 does otherwise make an effort to immerse the player. Your avatar does not have a name, instead you're referred to as Rookie or Deputy. Characters refer to you using your gender appropriate and occasionally gender neutral pronouns. Oh, how very progressive. This makes the Italian line all the more annoying, because it makes clear that the developers did have the topic of racism on their minds when they were creating the joke. You're really reaching here, Dexter. How does Italian come across as racist? That doesn't even make sense. Like asking someone if you are Italian. What does that mean?
What does that mean? That boy needs therapy. Lay down on the couch.
Felix Buzzard, the only answer is the opinion of the entire staff that Dexter is criminally insane.
That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. You're psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Lie down on the couch. What does that mean?
That boy needs therapy.
I'm not getting any racism at all. If you're Italian, please tell me what that means. Italian.
Somebody touch my spaghetti!
But instead of taking it seriously, they used it for an arbitrary joke. In this context, slapping a bunch of black characters into the game without explanation feels not only like tokenism, but also a deliberate avoidance of a real element of American life, one that might have made the game more interesting. This weakness in Far Cry 5's world building is essentially disappointing because its predecessor was so much braver and funnier in its approach to American sensibilities. But then you're complaining that, Far Cry 2 and 3 are racist because you're killing the locals who are people of colour. It says about Far Cry 4 set in the fictional sort of Himalayan country of Kyrat has been taken over by the bloodthirsty dictator Pagan Min, and he was a really charismatic villain. I really enjoyed him, and I actually, like, spoilers, but I didn't shoot him. I let him go free. He revealed information that you wouldn't have gotten if you had shot straight out and shot him. You find out information that you are technically kind of related to Pagan Min. Like, he's your stepfather, and you had a half sister that he had with your biological mother, and I let him go. And then when I returned to, originally I sided with Sabal throughout the game, that I felt that Sabal, that he wanted to keep hold of the old traditions of Kyrat, keep hold of the religious culture, but then And Amita was this, she wanted progress, she wanted to throw away, but she was happy to throw anyone under the bus. Sabal believed in you. He's like, oh, your father would, because the father, RJ Gale, your character, his father was one of the leaders of the Golden Path, this resistance, sort of resistance fighter. But they are kind of technically terrorists, really. And so he was the leader of the Golden Path. But Sabal had faith in you, whereas Amita was happy to throw anyone and everyone under the bus. She saw everyone as resources, as expendable pawns in the war effort. She was happy to obtain farmland and turn them into opium fields, to sell the drugs for money to support the war effort. And so sort of one of the sort of final quests, she went, oh, one of these young girls has been chosen to be this Turan Matata, this sort of goddess, like an physical embodiment of this goddess in the karate religion. And she doesn't, you speak to the young girl and she's like, I just want to live my own life. I don't want to have these choices made for me. I don't want to be this. I want my own life. And so I chose to side with Amita on that quest. She went, help me destroy the temple, and then we'll get all of the treasure out of the vault. We'll smelt it down, and we'll sell it off. Again, resources for the war effort. And Amita goes, oh, go kill Sabal. So I went to Sabal. I didn't kill him. I said, just go. And he went, oh, you've doomed this country. Go back to Amita. And then after you complete the quest, and I've said, oh, Pagan Min's taken care of, I let him go and I spoke to him. And then Amita is now with the Golden Path. She's going around all the villages, rolling up all of the children. She wants child soldiers. She's saying to all of the villagers, oh, return to your homes, or I will have you shot. Your children are coming with me. They're going to be trained up as soldiers. So she treats everyone as expendable, and it's kind of interesting that she's very much like Anita Sarkeesian. I think even like the writer said, oh, if you're like Gamergate, you're going to hate Far Cry 4 story. I'm like, yeah, you haven't really painted Amita in a particularly nice light. She's not written as a nice character at all. But it just shows, and I watched the alternate choice if you chose to side with Sabal at the end, and if you kill Amita. But yeah, Amita is very much like Anita Sarkeesian. She claims that she's for being progressive, but she's happy to throw anyone and everyone under the bus. Amita does straight out kill any dissenters. And the same with Sabal. He kills any dissenters, like, oh, you are blasphemous to the gods. Whereas she's like, no, we're breaking away from tradition. We're progressing forwards. And but yeah, she just sees everyone as an expendable pawn in the war effort. Everyone as a resource. That's why I didn't like her. So yeah, after she palmed me off, she went, get out of my way. Even though, right, for decades, the Golden Path has been fighting Pagan Min, trying to liberate Kyrat. And then along comes RJ Gale, and then in like the space of maybe like a month that he's been in Kyrat, he liberates all of the outposts and fortresses, all of the bell towers, and he manages to completely single-handedly take down Pagan Min. And then Amita or Sabal, they go, yeah, get out of my fucking way. And so after she walked up the road, after the cutscene played out, I pulled my Spaz 12 shotgun out and just went in her back and killed her. I'm like, well, this country's gonna be doomed with someone like you in charge, so better to kill you. And my karma took a huge hit. But so anyway, back to the article. It says, as the game progresses, you realise that American interference caused the country to fall into chaos in the first place. There wasn't really that much American interference. I think the only thing was Agent Willis Huntley, the CIA agent, who's appeared in Far Cry 3. You do side quests for him, and in Far Cry 4 as well. And he also appears in Far Cry 5. And he actually references Jason Brody and RJ Garley, the characters that you play as, which is quite cool. He references that. But yeah, I don't think there's been that much American interference in Karat. Then there's, and this is the funny bit, they can't this soy boy can't stand anyone that speaks out against a Democrat or a sort of liberal president or politician. Then there's direct jabs at American foreign policy, courtesy of a pirate radio DJ played by Hassan Minhaj, who jokes about then President Obama winning the Nobel Peace Prize despite ordering drone strikes like they're going out of style. I don't think I heard. I think I remember that. But yeah, in Far Cry 5, like there's NPCs that go, oh, Obama voting libtards. Like the game journalists couldn't stand it. After that level of sauciness, Far Cry 5 comes off about as spicy as an oatmeal sandwich. Tasty. This isn't to say that Far Cry 5 isn't fun, and the fact that Ubisoft is listening to and considering the criticism they have gotten in the past is worthy of some praise, but their effort to address this criticism just falls flat. The games weren't racist, so I don't know why Ubisoft need to consider listening to the criticism. And it's so funny when this comes from an SJW, right? Far Cry 5's ham-fisted appeal to diversity via dumping black characters onto the screen is not offensive per se, but it is a symbolic of a deeper issue, Ubisoft's seemingly low estimation of the kind of America that gamers are willing to see. In all of the press for the game, the Far Cry developers have stressed how much time they spent in Montana in order to make it authentic, going fishing, looking at the landscape, having beers with locals. But anyone who has lived in America would recognise the country that appears in Far Cry 5 as inauthentic. It's disappointing that realism in this game was not limited by graphical limitations or writing talent, but by timidness. Do not cater to these people. Gamers have been saying we don't like this ham-fisted diversity, forced diversity quotas, token characters, tokenism. When we say, oh, we're racist, sexist, misogynistic, transphobic, Nazis, alt-right Nazis. But when they say it, it's like, oh, we're pointing out that this is bad. And I've said this before, I thought predominantly the gaming industry, like most companies, are quite liberal, left-leaning. Like, obviously, I'm sure there's individual developers and coders and programmers who maybe are centrist or conservative or right-leaning. They don't feel the need to spout their political beliefs. It's just really funny that they just come across as dumping forced diversity characters. I can't remember if it was this article or another one, but someone said that they didn't play. I wonder if he's altered this article, because I remember he said he didn't complete the game. I think he's changed it, or like altered it, or edited it, because he said that he hadn't completed the game, and people are like, well, how can you have a full say on what the game is about? Because actually the game, he was saying about even the non-enemy characters that are black as well. There is actually a Native American character, like it's a female character that's a Native American. So he's wrong. There is actually Native American. When all you see is skin color, you are the true racists. But anyway, I'd like to hear what you guys think of this. Leave a comment down below. I'll hopefully have more content coming for you soon. Thursday at 10 PM UK time, which is about 6 PM Eastern time. I'll be doing an interview with Lars, or at The Real Fuzz K. He's director of social media at 1047 Games. They're working on the game Wormhole Wars, which I've done about 3 videos on. I did a Let's Play of the alpha as well. So Thursday I'll be doing an interview with him. It's about a 30-minute informal interview to find out more information about Wormhole Wars, which I'm really excited about. like I said, send me any questions that you'd like me to ask Lars, any information or even any ideas or suggestions you have for their game that you'd like me to ask. Send me a DM on Twitter. So yeah, really exciting for that. So like I said, I'm Flattmeister. I'll catch you in the next video. Keep it toasty.